Hi everybody. First of all, thank you all so much for coming and viewing my content and subscribing to this channel. I was not expecting to get many viewers outside of my family and friends, and I especially did not expect to get anyone subscribing to this channel, so thank you. I'm up to 9 subscribers now, which is, I know it's not a lot, but it's still a lot more than I expected. So thank you, and thank you for coming back. I wanted to do a quick video to just discuss kind of how I got started with the violin, so far how my journey has looked, so that if any of you have been considering it and you've been putting it off for whatever reason, I can show you and tell you how my journey has been, what I've done so far, the steps I've taken, and some of the mistakes I've made. So let's go ahead and get started on that. Obviously, my videos are not highly processed. I'm recording this on a cell phone. I don't have video editing software, so it's not going to be super fancy like some of these other folks that do a lot of these videos, but yeah, it wasn't really meant to be, right? It's mostly for myself and helping out others who might be interested in the journey but have been hesitant for any reason whatsoever. So the first thing I'll address is, as an adult beginner, this can actually be a little daunting. I expected it to be a lot more difficult mentally than it has been for me. It's been a very long time since I've learned a new instrument, so I had a lot of mental blocks around it. What if I'm not good enough? What if I really suck at this? And, I'm not great, so I probably suck at this. But I'm having fun doing it, and that's really the point. It was something I wanted to do for myself. And so first and foremost, if it's something you want to do for yourself, just do it. Just do it. No one has to know if you suck. No one has to know unless you're posting videos like me. Masochist, I guess. But yeah, just do it. It's great. It's rewarding. It's fulfilling. I'm having a blast learning this, even if I'm not making as good of a progress as I'd like to. So just do it. So the first thing obviously I did, I mentioned this in my intro video, was got a violin. Don't go out and get an expensive violin at first. I really don't recommend that. I found mine on Goodwill auctions online. They have a lot of cheap violins that are in perfectly playable condition, and you can get them really, really cheap. I've seen some sell for less than $10. Some of those didn't have strings, but let's be real. You can go to your local music shop and get new strings put on, get a new bridge, whatever you need. And the components of the violin itself are not usually that expensive, so you can usually do things like that fairly cheap. So especially if you're getting a violin for under $10, spending $20, $30, $40 on something else, you still have a violin and new parts for less than $100. It's worth it. So just do it. Just do it. It's great. So yeah, I got a violin, obviously, first step. The violin that I got did come with a bow, but I was unsure of the quality of the bow. Mistake number one, I didn't do a whole lot of research before I went and got my first instrument, so I didn't really know what to look for. I knew I wasn't getting a top of the line violin. I didn't care. I didn't want a top of the line violin right now. I just wanted to learn the basics and how to play it. So that was not important to me. The bow, however, I wanted to make sure it was at least functional, had good hair on it. I didn't know at the time that you could even rehair a bow, so, again, research. But I did end up getting a new bow probably within the first day or two after I got my violin. I went to the local music store near me, I got new strings, I got a new bow, and just started playing. I looked up on YouTube how to restring it myself, just because I am very much a DIY person. I love doing these kind of things myself. I love little projects. I love learning new things. So I looked up how to restring a violin, and it really wasn't that bad. So do it if you think you have the capability. I've also looked up how to rehair a bow, which is not something that I'm going to do with any of my functional bows, but I do have one that is broken that I'll probably go and try to rehair at some point just for fun. Anyway, getting off topic. Sorry. Next thing, of course, I did, besides the bow and the strings, is I got a book. I did pick up a physical book to learn from. So the first book that I picked up was The ABCs of Violin for the Absolute Beginner. Now, I picked this one out for a couple of reasons. I looked through a few of the beginner books, and I thought this one, being the absolute beginner, would really work for me. It does have some introduction to the instrument, so it gives you a basic idea of what the different components of a violin are. It gives you a quick rundown of the note structure on the strings, which was useful for me because I didn't know a damn thing, to be honest. Sorry. I could have figured it out being a musician already and having a tuner and things like that. I could have easily figured out what note I'm playing, but not knowing where to tune them, maybe not. It also had a little posture guide and the fingerings. So that was helpful because I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know how to hold it. So outside of that, it just started you right in with some very basic songs. There's, Mary Had a Little Lamb and things like that. It was very basic music. It has the notes in here labeled. But overall, it actually ended up not being as useful as I expected it to be. Going through it, I did figure some things out on my own very quickly, though. Again, as I mentioned in my intro video, I decided I wanted to get an instructor, mostly because I didn't feel like I was holding the violin properly. The way that they describe the posture, they don't really highlight the importance of keeping your wrist straight. So, I was doing the beginner thing of having my wrist bent when I was holding the violin, but you need to have it straighter. It also had no diagrams at all on how to properly hold the bow. So I had no idea how to hold a bow. I ended up learning this by looking it up on YouTube. But even with that, I wasn't sure I was doing it right. Some things that I was doing didn't feel quite right to me, and I wasn't sure if that was because it wasn't right or if it was just because it was new to me. I wasn't used to holding my wrist and my hands in certain ways or holding things certain ways. So I really wasn't sure if it was me or if it was just the newness of what I was doing. So I went ahead and found an instructor. That's the other thing I would highly recommend. If anyone wants to learn violin, even if you only do a couple of lessons, I would highly recommend getting an instructor just for the initial learning phase of how to hold it, how to use it, how to do things. I had a lot of questions from my instructor when I first started. How do you properly rosin your bow? For one, I watched a few YouTube videos and they had varying answers from me. There's a lot of contradictory information out on the internet, you might guess. So I just wanted to understand from someone who's very much into this lifestyle of playing every day. She's not quite professional, but she is a very recent college graduate, and she's very knowledgeable about this, and it's still very fresh for her. So it's been very useful for me, at least personally. That was another thing. As an adult learner, I was very nervous about getting lessons from someone who could potentially even be my grandchild. But, I just got to put that behind me. I don't mind learning from someone who's much younger than me. They obviously know more than me in this particular area, and that's fine. She's lovely to work with. I'm having a great time working with her. So all of that is past. I have no qualms about it now. But definitely get an instructor. YouTube has a wealth of information. I am not saying I am one of those sources of information. I'm still very new to this. I may tell you how I do things. That doesn't mean it's the right way. It doesn't mean it's the best way. It's just how I do the thing. So take that with a grain of salt. Anytime I say, this is how you do a thing, this is how I do the thing. Okay. So again, the book that I had gotten was good to start, but it wasn't the best. When I started with my instructor, she recommended, and we have been learning from, this book, Essential Elements for Strings. This has been fantastic. This is book 1, and it goes through a lot of the same stuff. It has posturing. It does have information around the actual violin, but what I really like, when it tells you how to do the fingerings, it shows you the positioning on a grid here on the neck, so you can kind of get a feel. It shows you how your hand might look. when you're holding the strings here. So that's actually really useful for me. I don't know, I might learn a certain way, you might learn differently, but this book has been incredible for me. We actually just finished it in our last lesson, and the next book we're moving on to is Suzuki. Each of these have different teaching methods, so depending on how you learn, one of these books might be better for you than another. So take that with a grain of salt. That was just kind of a quick rundown of the different books that I've been using, the different resources that we've utilized. Let's see, what have I learned since then? So I mentioned rosin and bows. Those are two things that I had to learn quite a bit about: how to hold the bow, how to use the rosin. I also recently, probably a little later than I would have liked to learn, but recently learned there are different types of rosin for violin, and there are different qualities of rosin. So, of course, immediately when I go to my local music store, I'm looking for things that are just quick, easy, cheap, you know, rosin's rosin, whatever. But that's not the case. I picked up this D'Addario rosin, and it's not bad. It works just fine, but it is very powdery. And you'll notice when you play, if you have especially a freshly rosined bow, this will make a cloud of dust when you're playing, and it will also leave a lot of rosin on the bow itself, as well as all over the violin, on the strings. It cakes up. So there are different qualities of rosin, and I didn't realize this. I ended up getting new rosin just very recently as well, which is much cleaner. I feel like it's much cleaner, and it just works better. It's not as sticky either, so that's really nice. It cleans off my strings easier, and overall I love this rosin so much more. But do your research, decide what kind of rosin you like. There are different colors. Some people, I guess, prefer different colors, like darker amber colors. The one I have is green now, obviously. Some people like the lighter amber colors. I don't really understand the preference on color at the moment, but the rosin I chose is mostly chosen because it was labeled as a good quality, smooth and clean rosin, and that's what I was looking for. So it's worked really well for me, though. The other thing is I didn't realize how to start rosin. I just grabbed my bow and started going at it when I first got the rosin, and didn't really quite understand how to get it going. There are several different methods that I've read and found around how to get a rosin block started to actually use it on your bow. And especially on a new bow, you need to make sure you rosin it real good. Some people use pen caps. I've heard of people using just any sharp thing. Actually, my teacher had told me to use my bow. At one point, she said that some people just use the bow by either using the tip of it or by using the corner of the frog. Now, if you have a least less expensive bow, sure, that's actually what I ended up doing with my first block of rosin. But after I realized it was really just to loosen it up and expose it, I took a pin, just a sewing pin, and did a crisscross pattern in the rosin. And you can kind of see that here where I just crisscrossed it, and these are the areas that it has worn down so far. I haven't had it very long, so the whole thing has not worn yet. But so there's that. The bow, I had no idea the range of bow qualities that exist. Sorry, my dog again is being loud. So I didn't know that there was different qualities of bow and bow hair. I didn't really know much at all about the bow hair. So I now have 3 bows. I recently got a new bow, mostly because the one I had gotten before was so cheap. It was cheap wood, it was cheap hair, especially some of the components were starting to wear already, and it had only been, again, less than 2 months at the time. There was a plastic piece that kind of covered here, and that was rolling off, and the leather area here was just starting to wear a little bit, and I was very disappointed, honestly. It was a no-name bow. There was actually no brand name on the packaging. There was no brand name on the bow itself, so I don't even know what to tell you to avoid. It was just a very cheap bow. This is my new bow, which is a Coda bow, and it's a beautiful, beautiful bow. It's carbon fiber, and I know it looks black, but it's actually a dark brown carbon fiber. Immediately getting it, it was immediately recognizable as a much better quality. I decided one day to test it out, and I played my violin with all 3 bows that I now have, the one that came with it from Goodwill, the one that I purchased initially, and my new bow. The sound difference between the 3 is significant, and I was very surprised by that. Since I'm only on a cell phone, I'm not going to play it for you now because you're probably not going to really pick up on the difference, but maybe I can get myself mic'd up on some of the equipment in here and do a real proper bow comparison on the violin just so you can really hear the difference, because it's kind of astounding, actually. I was very impressed with the different sound qualities of just the bow. Let's see. I think that's really it, I guess. At least for how to get started, I'd, again, recommend getting a good book. How you learn will dictate what kind of book is useful for you. Getting some lessons if you're new to violin, like totally new to violin. I'm also brand new to string instruments in general, so it was a little complicated. I started with trumpet. I've played piano, but I'm not very good at it, I'll be honest. I've played a few other instruments, mostly brass instruments. I'm going to be learning flute soon, so you'll probably see some videos up here after my recital for violin. I might pick up the flute and start to learn that a little bit. But most of my instruments previously had been an instrument where you only use one hand functionally. With the trumpet, I'm holding the trumpet, but I'm only playing with the one hand. So the coordination there was not a double-handed coordination. With the violin, having to finger with one hand, bow with the other, and have that coordination between the two was new to me. I was a little nervous about that. But it actually it feels natural once you get used to it. So I was really happy about that. Not having frets makes things a little complicated. I have a decent ear for music, so it wasn't too bad for me, but everyone's going to be different. My teacher did put, you'll see there's stickers here. I actually just started playing while not looking at the violin and was successful in that. So my next video, hopefully I'm going to try to look at the camera mostly while I play, just to get out of the habit of staring down my violin, because when I'm playing, you'll notice I'm usually staring because I'm looking at my fingering, I'm looking at my bowing, making sure that's all right. But I want to get away from that habit, so I'm going to try to start looking straight at the camera when I play, and I probably won't need those stickers for very long, which is exciting. So we'll see. The other thing, get a shoulder rest. I know some people, myself included, honestly, I was very hesitant to get a shoulder rest, but some people don't want to do this because they feel like it's not really playing the instrument how it was intended to be played. I started trying to play it without a shoulder rest, and I was doing okay, but I wasn't sure I was doing it right. My instructor, I wouldn't say insisted, but she highly, highly, highly recommended that I got a shoulder rest for my violin. And I did, and it totally transformed my ability to play. It's much easier to hold in a consistent place. It's much more comfortable. And, don't feel like it's cheating. Don't feel like you're doing something wrong or you're not good enough if you have to use a shoulder rest. Lindsay Sterling uses a shoulder rest in her videos, guys. So don't feel like you shouldn't. I'd highly recommend that. It's been amazing, and I don't know that I'll ever stop using it, to be perfectly honest. So, okay, for real, I'm done this time. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, if there's anything you want me to discuss, any concerns, feel free to comment, and I will respond. I am very responsive. So, yeah, I hope this was helpful, at least in some way for you, but I am sure I'll be seeing you again soon. At the very least, I'll have another update on my solo on Sunday. So, thank you all.